Good evening, everybody. Oh, what happened there? All right, hang on one second. A little technical difficulties here. Welcome to another edition of ILEETA Live. We have one heck of a guest here tonight, Cody Mann, all the way from Oregon. And I know the ILEETA Live banner said that we're going to have Todd Fletcher on, but he's having some technical difficulties due to some storm activity down there, wherever he's at. I know he's traveling all over the country, and it's hard to keep track of Todd where he's at. So he's flying with the tumbleweeds, I'm sure. But Cody, we're going to jump right in. And for those that don't know who Cody is, which is probably quite a few people since this was your first ILEETA conference, welcome to ILEETA Live. And why don't you tell us who Cody is for everybody that doesn't know who you are?
My name's Cody, and I am a police officer out of the Sutherland Police Department, which is in Oregon. I've been in law enforcement for 10 years, previously working with the Douglas County Sheriff's Department as well. Prior to that, I was an infantryman in the United States Army. I did a deployment to Afghanistan, and before that, I was in high school, frankly. So that's about all she wrote.
Well, thanks for being a guest here.
Yeah.
May is Military Appreciation Month, and I wanted to. We all at ILEETA wanted to have a veteran, somebody that was in the military, on to show our appreciation for all those that have served. I know myself, I was in the Marine Corps. Joe, he was in one of those other branches. I mean, there's only one branch. It's the Marine Corps, right?
It's the same one that Cody was in.
Yeah.
So we appreciate your service, and we also appreciate the service of all of our ILEETA members and everybody out there that's watching that may not be an ILEETA member. Cody, can you kind of walk us through how has the military helped you come into a career of being a law enforcement instructor?
With being an instructor in law enforcement, especially in today's day and age, I've come to find that being able to be personable and build relations with your trainees, whether they be students at an academy or in service with folks that have been doing it for decades longer, like in my case that I have very often, when you can build that camaraderie, which is very almost forced upon you in the military, you can tend to have a much more fruitful and enjoyable training experience. And I've tried my best to in turn implement that on the training atmosphere. Just be out there, be motivated, be passionate about what you're doing, and try and create those bonds with people, make connections, network, always stay in touch. And that tends to flex us into more of that more fruitful training atmosphere. And it's definitely helped a lot.
Gotcha.
Go ahead, Brian. Are we streaming? I'm looking for where we're connecting, and I'm not seeing it on Facebook or YouTube right now.
I'm not either.
So, I don't want to miss any of this gold. We're talking Army right now, and so I don't want to miss anything.
I show us currently live on YouTube right now.
We are live on YouTube?
Yes.
The ILEETA YouTube channel.
Yes, I am looking at it right now. Yep, there we go. That's my YouTube page right there. So we are live.
Yeah, I'm seeing it now on YouTube. I didn't a minute ago. And I'm not seeing it on Facebook, Brian.
No, I'm not seeing on – and I know Facebook, that third party, they dropped all third-party apps, and I thought I did the workaround again to get it live on Facebook.
I'm going to share the link to YouTube on Facebook if that's cool with you.
Yep, that's good to go.
Okay. Anyway, Cody was sharing some solid gold stuff there on the Army experience and how. And I mean, yeah, sure. I'm gonna throw out some jokes here about the Army, being the supreme branch, but I think that goes now that I work with the Navy on a regular basis. I think that speaks to all the veteran culture as far as that, train to move up mindset.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Definitely. The ability for us to, and when you say move up, what I'm grasping is the move up in their tenure and rank and things like that. Correct?
Correct. That's where I was going. Yeah, and I mean that was kind of sharing the experience with you, and I think Brian, you may have experienced something similar. Is to move from Lance Corporal to Corporal, you kind of had to take ownership of the development of all of the privates, right? And it's the same thing I experienced in the Army. And Cody, if I heard you correctly, it really does kind of foster and instill that spirit of develop the next generation, the stewardship piece.
Yeah, it definitely does. When we can pass the baton, as it were, and keep our traditions going, all while evolving at the same time as trainers and as people going to these trainings, I think that's huge because society is always changing with generations, and interests change with generations. And when we can level with new folks coming into any career field, but especially law enforcement and military, what they're motivated for, and we can turn that into our passions as instructors, that again, that's going to create that relationship where they're going to trust you. If you trust your trainer, you trust the facilitators at whatever academy you're going to, you're going to be more likely to have that ingrained in that long-term memory to be able to retrieve that knowledge that you were taught.
Awesome. Well, since Todd had all those tumbleweeds blowing around in Texas or wherever he's at, we had to call Dwayne at the last minute, and he decided to jump in. And Dwayne, we're going to throw it over to you. What questions you have there for Cody?
Talk about throwing me in the hot seat. Cody, just a couple questions for you. How long have you been a trainer?
I've been training now for just under 4 years. So right around COVID really is when I started just getting in the instructor development courses and things like that.
What an awesome beginning, COVID, just to make things interesting.
Yeah, it definitely did.
And then, so kind of reading through your bio. Oh, go ahead,
Dwayne, the academy?
Yes, so I currently
teach
also part-time at the. Yes, currently teaching part-time at the Department of Public Safety Standards and Training. Up there, I have taught firearms. I've taught in the tactical skills venue. I've taught in DTs. I was actually there today doing some shadowing in DTs, kind of getting a feel for how they're doing it there now. And the day before, I was doing some tactical skills, running recruits through use of force scenarios and traffic stops and building searches and domestic violence, things like that. It was a really, really good training days. But yes, I'm doing active training on my days off, part-time at the academy, full-time law enforcement, 40 hours a week. And then I also will do the CONSEM use of force type trainings and some DT and some firearms for our interagency program that we have. We actually have 4 police departments in our interagency training program, and we take turns passing that training responsibility onto other instructors in those other agencies. So our training regime that we have is, in my personal opinion, the best I've been through. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a part of it. We always have different and new instructors every month come do things, bring input. Everyone's very open to changing things and critique and feedback. So it's really nice having that the difference in the change up. It just keeps it fresh.
So it sounds like you're really teaching a lot.
More agency cooperation amongst themselves.
Yeah, it's a game changer. If you can bring your municipalities and smaller agencies, and for that matter, the big ones. If you can bring all those resources together, you save in funds, because I know a lot of smaller agencies, funding is huge. It's, can we afford the FX rounds that are, expensive? They're more than live ammo sometimes. Can we afford the venue to rent it for a couple days? All these things factor in. And when it's one agency's responsibility to host it, that financial burden usually falls on them, and that can throw a wrench in the gears. But when you have 4 other agencies all having a part in it, they share that cost. We had state police come and sit in on our interagency training meeting this year, and they offered their support and their funding for some of our trainings too, which is great. That's a lot of funding there and resources we can utilize. So it's a game changer. And I agree with you. A lot of agencies would benefit if they were to do an interagency training program.
Awesome.
You're currently teaching firearms, defensive tactics, practical skills. What else are you teaching?
So I'm really into resiliency and suicide prevention and awareness. Resiliency is huge for me because of some leaders that I had in the military that took their own lives. Several years for one of them, and then just a couple years for the other one, both of which being leaders that I never would have fathomed to do that. And many of my colleagues and peers all thought the same thing. And they were some of the greatest soldiers we'd ever known. And they were the greatest leaders that we had the privilege of working with and serving under. And it kind of stems from that mentality that all of us in this are aware, and all of our viewers, I'm sure, are aware. Keep your mouth shut, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and drive on, because there's a mission at hand and you got to take care of business. I'm sure we all kind of came from some version of that, whether it was when we started our career or when we're in the military, what have you. And I came from that as well. And we kind of stuck to that. And I believe that we need to change the way we look at our own situation mentally and our own resiliency, and have that self-awareness to say, I'm not feeling too hot. I should probably go talk to somebody. So that being said, I've developed a course that I intend to pitch to ILEETA 2025. It's called Battle Buddy Resiliency. And it's to be, the way it's presented is to be, give you the opportunity to find a battle buddy. And for those of you who are watching that might not know what a battle buddy is a person who's assigned to you in the military. That's what they're called, battle buddies. And they're responsible for making sure you are on time, you have all your gear, you are in the right uniform, you have your weapon, whatever it may be. And then you, in turn, are responsible for that as well. So it's kind of a funny haha intentionally, but the idea is that you will leave this class with somebody to hold you accountable, and for you to have somebody to hold accountable on your best days and your worst days. And that is an unbiased third party that you've never met, hopefully. And then you can create this connection for the rest of your life, hopefully, where that one person, if you call them, if you email them, if you text them, they will be truthful, honest, and straightforward with you. And they will always be there to just be an ear to listen, or to hold you accountable when you're having a rough patch. And that's not to say that feeling bad is something that you need to have a negative connotation when you hear the word accountable. It's just to recognize, hold yourself accountable, and understand that I'm having some negative emotions and I need to address them instead of let them fester. So I've been getting into that atmosphere also in more of a classroom setting, teaching a lot of the resilience and the mindfulness and that mindset that's still hard and like granite, but the ability to carve a door in that granite and be willing to open and close it every once in a while, if that makes sense. So,
Absolutely.
How important is it for our firearms instructors and DT instructors, from your perspective, to really be able to speak that language of resilience? What are your thoughts there?
I think it's huge. If you are a firearms instructor, often obviously you're teaching firearms, but you're going to be teaching scenarios in which they will depict the likelihood or possibility of engaging somebody in a life-threatening situation, a deadly use of force. You're training this, and you're training the skills in which to be effective and to neutralize a threat if need be. But are we training the mental aspect of that outcome? We all go into whatever our chosen profession is with the idea of, I don't want to hurt someone. I don't want to take someone's life, but that is a risk of the job where if somebody attacks me, I have to respond. And on the range, we end it with, all right, you shot accurately, or you shot precise, or you did the drill correctly. You're a go, no go, you scored whatever you scored. And then they walk off the range and they reload their duty gear and they go out on the road. I think being able to express to them, if this happens, this is what you might expect physically, physiologically, mentally, and here are some resources. That's the biggest part. A lot of times I've heard from people, they just don't know where to go. They have something happen to them that affects them mentally, and they don't know how to deal with it, and they don't know where to go, and they're embarrassed or ashamed, and they don't feel like they can go ask where to go. So it's not even necessarily a thing of, I'm not willing to talk to a licensed professional. It's just, I don't know who to ask, and I don't want to ask my buddy or my sergeant because I don't want them to think less of me. So just putting it out there, giving them the resources, kind of prepping them. The way we do ours in those venues, in firearms, tactical skills, and DTs, is we like to set up a crawl, walk, run, which our veterans here will know exactly what I'm talking about. When you train to go overseas, you start with team size elements, then you move to squad size elements, then you move to platoon size, so on and so forth, until you get to typically a brigade or a division training, which is a lovely culmination that occurs. But in those trainings that we've been doing in our interagency training program, in that crawl phase, we're giving them resources. We're giving them statistics, analytics, and like this year, we're teaching active shooter threat. And for our crawl, we did, instead of just, this is how we respond as law enforcement officers, we gave them an aspect of what to expect when you get there, the chaos, the horrible scene you might be exposed to. How are the civilians going to be affected by this? So we're preparing their minds to visualize, even in a training format, how gruesome and chaotic that might be. So it's putting that slide in their Rolodex to prepare them mentally for that, as opposed to just going in, let's get the bad guy and let's save everybody. Because we know we're going to do that. That's what we signed up to do. But let's prepare them for that mental aspect and the visual representation of what that might be when they come to it. So, but long answer, short answer is, I think it's very important. We should be implementing that in all of our training venues.
It was a good answer, and I appreciate it. And I want to let the others, there's so many things I think we could continue to pull the thread on, but I could see a question brewing in Dwayne's mind, and then he started to speak.
I got to get a better poker face. What I wanted to say is I think it's really a great idea that you guys are doing that in all aspects across the training regarding resiliency, and specifically having the firearms instructors talk about those specific things, because all too often it's all about running the gun. And there's nothing about resiliency. There's nothing about mental health. There's nothing about how to deal with what you're going to have to deal with it. And somewhere along the line in the academy, it's, a separate class someplace. But when they're hearing it from their DT instructors, their firearms instructors, because we all know that there's a certain place in cadets' minds as they go through the academy regarding their perceptions of their firearms instructors, their DT instructors. And to hear that from that cadre is incredibly important, and it should be all-encompassing throughout the entire academy, in every class that applies. Those things should be discussed, and hopefully, and we all know how difficult it is dealing with multiple people, that everybody's on the same page when we're talking about those specific areas. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I agree. The instructors, if we can remember back when we first got into this field, this career path, they should have, and hopefully they were the people you wanted to emulate to some aspect. They were the best shooter. They were the sharpest dressed. They had the nicest boot polish. They knew their laws better than anybody. They were always the people who had that little bit of extra. And I feel like if you can give that resiliency, just the little grain of resiliency in your trainings, and you are that instructor that they want to emulate, that might give them that nudge to think about that further in their career. Because resiliency, in my opinion, is a major reason for lack of or the longevity of an officer or deputy or corrections or telecom, whatever aspect in this field. Because if you don't have that resiliency, you're going to be slow dripped traumatic events over the course of a 15, 20, 25, 30-year career. Those of us that went overseas and deployed, very often, if you are in a combat scenario, like me, just infantry, and I was in a reconnaissance platoon. So we got into some firefights. We had a couple bombs here and there, that type of thing. You get about 1 or 2 real traumatic events on average if you're over there as a baseline infantryman like I was. They're very traumatic. They live with you for the rest of your life, and you find ways to deal with them. But there's 1 or 2 usually, and they're in that deployment. And then you come home, and then you go through garrison stuff, and you have your family, and you kind of go back to normalcy if you're able to. Whereas in law enforcement and in this field, even of first responders, paramedics, firefighters, all of the above, you're slow dripped traumatic events almost every shift that you go to work and you put your uniform on, whether it's responding to a very bad domestic or having to deal with a death investigation. We do a lot of things almost every shift that most people will never do in their lives that don't work in this field. And when we don't prep ourselves to be resilient and to handle that stress and that trauma, I feel like we're doing ourselves a disservice. I think I didn't look at any statistics before this, but I would be fair to say that the tenure, the long length of a career for law enforcement officers right now is much shorter than it used to be. And I feel like that is directly related to lack of resiliency, whether it's through willingness or it's just not being provided in some aspects.
So I can't comment on that statistic, but what I can share with you and the viewers right now is that over a 30-year span within a law enforcement career, the statistics break down nearly equally among the 10-year cohorts where suicide exists. Mm-hmm. So within the first 10 years, second 10 years, third 10 years, it averages the low 20% is across the board. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't matter where we're at, right. It's affecting us. And I think anecdotally, I'm seeing a lot of early exits. People I've talked to, senior leaders across law enforcement, are watching people leave to go not laterally to other departments, but mm-hmm. other occupations entirely. And so
we're seeing that too. Yeah. And I think that it is, again, it's my opinion, but I do feel like that is a resiliency issue that we can address and we can fix. It'll take time, like everything does, but when you break down what resiliency is to the individual, that might be just what they need to deal with that one really bad call they had. They get tools when they go to these resiliency classes. They understand what resiliency is to them as an individual, what they may or may not need to do to deal with that physically and mentally, whether that be therapy, going to the gym, or finding a like yoga or breathing technique to deal with it in the moment. And then to later in time, when you're more in a more comfortable environment, break that down, break it apart, just like you would do in a therapy session. Find out what the problems were, the triggers were in that situation that upset you or that you think may upset you later. For me, I went through therapy after the military, but I went through therapy 7 years after I went to Afghanistan because I had no prep for that trauma later in life. I just wasn't prepared for it. And then I'm going through, at that point in my law enforcement career, I was 6 years in my law enforcement career. And I was telling all my friends often, like, man, I'd rather be in Afghanistan because I'm constantly dealing with crazy stuff. And so all that coupled together, and then going and talking to somebody, it helped. And after having the situation with my leaders taking their lives, and then going through the trauma that I was going through, I told myself I got to do anything I can to just maybe help one person decide that's not a viable option, because I think we'd all agree that one is too many. And the fact that statistic is, you said, just under 20% over the course of
across all the cohorts. So,
yeah,
I mean, suicide is the leading cause of line of duty death among all law enforcement professionals.
Yeah, that should not even be on the board. And I feel like us as peers, as leaders, as even subordinates, it is our responsibility to address that in each other, and then to be willing to be addressed with that. If you see somebody, you should be able to be that battle buddy and hold them accountable, and be willing to hear that come from somebody. That's huge too. So it's a big passion of mine.
Absolutely.
You know, I think it's wonderful that you're introducing this in a basic academy setting, because I remember a lot of us old folks that went to the academy, if we went and sought some help, some therapy, EAP, whatever, it was like a career ender. They told us in the academy, don't go to EAP, stay away from here. But we have to change that culture, and I applaud you for doing that. It's a huge step for a lot of people to do, and it takes a lot of courage to do that. And kudos to all your leaders in those agencies that are accepting that training. They're saying we do need this, and we do need to change the culture. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, because frankly, that is what we need, is just the acceptance all around, to be just willing to talk about stuff. You hit the nail on the head. That's very much so what it was in the past. If you go, even in the military, if you go and talk to somebody, you're done. You're not going to be able to take a weapon. You're not going to be able to go overseas, or you're not going to be able to hit the streets in your patrol car. You're not going to be able to carry a duty weapon. That was always the thought, that it's just going to be over. And in some cases, it very well was for a long time. And you can function and have trauma. You can function and have PTSD. I do fine every day. All right. So anybody can. They just need the right tools, and they need the willingness to want to do it in themselves. And I think they need the support of a peer, or of admin, or of a subordinate even. Much like I was saying before with those instructors early in our careers that we wanted to emulate, if they are giving that information, that's going to give that tool to this brand new recruit, this brand new cadet. They're going to get that, and they're going to be like, that one time in my reserve academy at a college, or at the academy for my state certification to be an officer or a deputy, I remember this instructor told me that story about his friend, or that story that he experienced and how he struggled with trauma, but gained the ability to be self-aware and have mindfulness in himself and utilize skills and resiliency. And it made his career a longer career. I genuinely think that is vital to the longevity of careers in this field.
100%.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, go ahead.
So I was going to say, I think, it's fun that we're having this conversation, and I don't know how well, Cody, you know anything about any of us, but the three of us are equally passionate about mental health and resilience, and the importance of getting the right skills to the right people at the right time, and whether that is introducing it at the academy level, or when I have conversations with senior leaders, I remind them all the time about the resting chief face. A lot of times they'll wander the halls with these, I got a million things on my mind look, and trainers are the same way. I mean, we will walk into training, buzzsawing off the last thing we were dealing with, and we come in and you got to do a reset. And I think what you're teaching as far as the resilience and mindfulness component, you said something earlier about, firearms and DT instructors. Breathing is, go back to like the best DT you've ever had. And when you're rolling around really hard, and your best instructors will remind you that you still got to breathe. You
Yeah.
still, regardless of what's happening, you're going to run out of gas if you don't breathe.
Yep.
And firearms is the same way, largely about breathing. Well, so is resetting vagal tone. And if we can get that instilled in people early, man, I'm super happy you're doing that. But I think at some point, though, we're going to have to, slip the clutch here and try to grind some gears and get us. I want to revisit a couple other things. You went to, this was your first conference this year.
It was. Yep.
So walk us through what brought you to the conference. How did you hear about it? And then what was your first experience at the conference? Tell us.
So where I first heard about it was going through Todd Fletcher's combative firearms instructor certification course. I went through that course. I was luckily and thankfully the person to be awarded a scholarship from Todd Fletcher. So I got a free pass to go to ILEETA, and that was pretty awesome. My leadership was very supportive and was able to help fund me get there. And so that's how I found it, and that's how I ended up there. Now, the thing that I loved more than anything about ILEETA was what we've been talking about is trending across the country right now. I did not anticipate that. I went in there thinking this is going to be like, check out our new gear. This is going to be some DT mat time, a couple ranges, and some like leadership oriented classes. That was all I thought it was going to be. But there was more mental health awareness-esque classes than I think most other subjects. And that is amazing. I was talking with people from Georgia. I was talking with people from the Midwest, and they were all on the same track. We got to lock this in. And it made me so happy. It made me even more passionate about the whole resiliency subject. I was super excited, and it motivated me to develop the course to present next year upon approval. But that was great. And then the networking, everyone was so nice. I remember the first night after the first day there, I called my wife and I told her on the phone, "You won't believe how nice people are out here. Like, this is so cool." Like everyone is friendly. They shake your hand. They, exchange information. They want to know about you, why you're there. And that's across the board. I didn't have one negative interaction with a person at the conference. It was so cool. And it was very encouraging for instructor to hear, "Hey, you got this. You should present this," or, "Hey, what'd you think about that class? That's their first time doing that," or, "That's their 20th time doing that. What'd you think?" And then the instructors would come up to you and they'd want feedback, whether they've done it 100 times or a first time. That's how we should be with each other as instructor to instructor. Be willing to have criticism, whether it's good or bad, and then embrace and adapt to those criticisms or feedbacks that you get. So the fact that that knowledge was being divulged and given willingly with a smile from everyone, that was so cool. I loved how friendly everyone was.
Yeah. Awesome. One good thing there's many good things about ILEETA, but it's a peer-to-peer organization where, you've kind of said it yourself. Nobody is better than anybody else. We're just on an even playing field. And some of those people that you look up to that are, I've heard celebrities in law enforcement is a term I've heard in the past. Mm-hmm. They're sitting right next to you taking notes in a class after they teach. So it's
right.
It's a great conference, and we're glad that you came to the ILEETA conference and had a wonderful experience. I think everybody that I talked to that was there for the first time had a great experience.
Yeah, it really is amazing. And for anyone watching that is an instructor and a member of ILEETA, and if you're not, you should be. It's something you should go to. It really is. I've had interactions with other instructors in my career in the field in which we both have instruction, and it's been great, but it wasn't anything like going to ILEETA. I feel like we kind of in law enforcement get stuck in our little ecosystems that we're used to. Like you'll hear everybody just where we're from, Ninth Circuit Court, this is what we're talking about, and we're not going to hear anything else because that's where we live. And time and place, sure, but why not hear what they're doing on the East Coast? Why not hear what they're doing down south? Why not hear what they're doing in the Midwest? Because they're experiencing similar experiences in different cultures, different demographics, different parts of the country that just have different lifestyles. And all these experiences are the same to a point with a little sprinkling of differences on them. And when we implement trainings with those people that have those different experiences, we can now possibly bring that to our agencies. That keeps training fresh. It keeps people engaged, gives them something new to think about. I know a lot of people will get kind of, oh man, we're doing DTs again. I bet we're going to hit the baton mat 50 times. They get used to doing the same thing over and over again. Whereas you go to a conference like this, you talk to somebody who does keep on the same subject, DTs, and they're doing something that you never thought of doing. And it's because they've always been doing it at their agency, right? Now you have another tool and you can give them what you've been doing. It's a huge exchange of knowledge and information that occurs at this conference. I will say too, at this one specifically, we had our Ukrainian counterparts, which was mind-blowing, to pick their brains about how they're training. Gave me chills just thinking about, talking to them and how they're implementing their training back home and what they're dealing with. That's another huge thing to take into account. The law enforcement changes around the world, and the fact that you can get somebody to this conference from another part of the world, not just the country, to get their knowledge, I think is that you can't put a price on it. There's no amount of money that can equate to. That's priceless knowledge.
I think in a lot of ways, if I understood how things are done in Ukraine, is that 80% of what they do is scenario based. I know every trainer that I can think of wishes they could do things the way they do things in Ukraine.
Yeah.
To be able to have that level of resources, that commitment, and that quality of training. If we could do that here in the U.S., would make a dramatic impact on law enforcement training across the board here.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. Did you get a chance to check out the expo while you were there? Oh, go ahead, Dwayne. Your question. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Joe. No, go ahead, Joe.
All right. Hey, I was just going to ask real quick. Did you get a chance to check out the expo? And if so, kind of how did that play into? I ask almost everybody because a lot of times we think of expos as these things where it's about, people just talking gear and not really about training. This is a trainers conference. Did it apply from your perspective as a first-time attendee?
Yeah, it did. So I also teach a lot of TAC Med. And so I got to talk, North American Rescue was there, and I got to talk to some of their trainers, which I believe one of them was a prior team guy. So that was really good to get his knowledge. And that's what it was. iCatch was the table and was the gear, but then it evolved into a 20-minute conversation about blood clotting and airways and exchanging knowledge and experiences and then information for follow-up questions later. And I believe the expo was more for the knowledge exchange for me and for the networking more than getting gear and sending a memo to my chief to buy something cool for us to have, that's a great aspect of it, but it facilitated maybe somebody who's not willing to go up to a stranger, shake their hands and tell them, I really liked your class, or what did you think of my class? It gives that segue to, oh, you work for Milo. That's cool. I've used your gear before. And then they can have a conversation about a use of force scenario or an OIS scenario. So I feel like that bridges that gap. Maybe if somebody's not willing to socially engage off to the side, it kind of helps with that. And then again, it wasn't just gear. I mean, there were folks from this whole mental health thing that we've been talking about during this. They were having booths at the expo too. And I talked to several people in regards to behavioral health and to mental health and to resiliency. And we talked for a long, long time at their booths and got information as to the programs they're teaching and how they're going about facilitating that. And that was on the expo floor. That wasn't from a class. So it's more than gear, guys. There's definitely more than gear. Yeah.
I just want to give a plug out to the virtual expo that we have on ILEETA's website. So if you missed the conference, you can still go and catch some short clips of all the vendors that were there, or most of the vendors that were there. It's a virtual expo there on the ILEETA website. Also, Facebook has changed some settings to where we can't really stream live on Facebook without some jumping through hoops. We are streaming right on ILEETA's website. Let me get that. ILEETA.org/ILEETA Live. Is that right, Joe?
That is correct.
Okay. So we're right there, and just everything that you can possibly want about ILEETA is right there on the website. Just go check it out. It's good to go there and log in and see all the benefits and all the member resources that ILEETA has to offer on the website there.
Yeah, it's priceless experience. People, they should go. If you're an instructor, if you're not an instructor even and you want to be an instructor, you should go. It changed my aspect on teaching as far as I'm more willing to instruct and facilitate now with more confidence because of this conference. I was not always super confident in myself as far as I know I have this knowledge base and I know I have skills to implement it, but a lot of the times I'm only 32, guys. I get a lot of the looks from the older guys out on the range or in the DT room or in the use of force room, and they're like, "Oh, what's this young buck know?" You know. But going through this academy or this expo and this conference, I got to talk to people who have been doing it for a couple years, and people have been doing it their entire lives, and they all were, again, so nice and welcoming about it. And to hear somebody who's been instructing and facilitating for 30 years, 40 years, and they tell me, who's only been doing it for about 4 years, that, hey, you're really good at this, you could work on this, and you should do more of it because I believe you have the ability to get better. That's all that people like us need to hear sometimes, you know, that encouraging words from somebody that you look up to. So the conference made that better for me. I'm more willing to be confident myself on the range and the mat room, in the use of force rooms, and in the classroom.
Sounds
Well,
like
lack
you're
of confidence among all instructors is a reoccurring theme amongst instructors at ILEETA, which, and you missed that conversation. Yeah. But while I'm going on, I cut Brian off because I'm finally going to get I'll learn how to talk here in a second. Get a word in edgewise. Number one, I appreciate your passion. I appreciate your enthusiasm. I appreciate the energy you're bringing to this program tonight. Here's a very simple question for you. What was your biggest takeaway from ILEETA?
Oh, man. That is a big question. Greatest takeaway. There's so many that I feel like I'm cheating because I want to say more than one. Really, it would be.
You can give me as many answers as you want.
Yeah, it would be the networking. Because that's like an endless fountain of knowledge. If I make 5 connections, that's 5 opinions, that's 5 knowledge wells that I can tap into whenever I need to. And the fact that people who go to this conference are willing to talk to you after the conference. I didn't even have a LinkedIn or anything before I went. I made a LinkedIn after, and I've connected to everybody now, you know, and we're talking and we're exchanging information. You know, I've had correspondence with people over text and phone call. If I have a question, I can ask them, and they'll answer me, and I know that. So I'd say, yeah, definitely the networking is probably my biggest takeaway, because it's a cheat code for information. You can tap into that whenever you want. All those people you talk to, all those phone numbers you get, all those emails you get, continue to utilize it as long as you want.
You know, I've always said that I'm not a fan of the term networking. I like the term relationship building.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Relationship. And I think that's one thing that I've been going to ILEETA since 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. And the friendships, and it goes beyond friendship. I think as a family, and you hit it on the nail. I think this one thing this organization does well, other than training, they train well, but it's the continuous relationships in the family atmosphere that this has, where you can pick up the phone, and if you're experiencing a problem in your agency, you can say, "Hey, I got this problem. How are you dealing with it?" and everybody would jump to help you out there.
Yeah, definitely. And it was very like family oriented mindset for sure. I mean, did any of you guys play in the cornhole tournament? Because I did.
I did.
Yeah, that was
Actually,
awesome.
I'm pretty sure you saw Dwayne's shirt, if nothing else.
I did.
They left a mark on the place.
Yeah, I remember the shirt. But yeah, that's a huge interaction.
There should have been a prize for a uniform. That's all I got to say.
I think if John Bostain is watching this, I really hope they bring it back again next year. It sounds like they're going to, and if they do, I think we should really encourage that.
Yeah, it was.
You're gonna have to up your game if he offers a prize for it. I'm just saying.
It was awesome.
It was an extremely fun night. Even if you weren't playing, and if you were just there socializing, having a a Coke or a coffee or a beer, whatever it was awesome. But Cody, it sounds like you're super excited. Yeah. And I just want to remind you, 306 days until the conference next year. Yep. So for those that are looking to put in a proposal to teach, that will open up here soon.
We're looking at 1 June. We've got everything set up for it, and we're going to try to have it launched on the 1st.
So 1 June to usually October 31st is the closing date. Yep. So you got plenty of time. So get those wheels spinning and think of what you want to teach. We love to see brand new first-time instructors teaching and making an impact on all of us.
Yeah, and again, for anyone who hasn't gone, the variety of trainings here, it's all over the board. You're not butt in a chair all day. You can do everything from DTs to ranges, live fires, scenario S type trainings, classrooms that cover all venues in law enforcement, first responders. You can get everything you want when you go to this conference, and I did. It was a curated week that I was able to make for what Cody wanted to be better at and to learn more about, and then fun stuff that I wanted to do on top of it. So it was made to my benefit for me because I got to pick what I wanted to do, and there was so much variety. I think that's another thing that's huge and awesome about this conference. You're not locked into only doing use of force for 5 days in a row or live fire for 5 days in a row. You get all of it if you want it. You just got to put in for it. That's it.
Yeah. And I think, it's, I don't know if he came up with it. Jason Durr on the Trainer's Buffet. He's the one who always says it. So it may have been somebody long before him and he got it from someone else, but I'm going to give credit to Jason Durr. But between Trainer's Buffet and my curated week, I think those two things are a great way of looking at it because a curated week is like going to, what kind of buffet this is. This is a seafood buffet and I know what to expect. It's all about training instructor development. So even if it is a resilience class, it is about making better resilience instructors. If it is a DT class, it is about making better DT instructors. It's all about elevating the level of our instructor capabilities. Curated week really stuck with me. I think just like I gave Jason credit for the Trainer's Buffet, I'm going to use curated week, and it's all you, Cody.
Thank you.
Hey, Joe. I would like to pause this with Cody for a second. Would you be willing to speak about your trip to Europe? Yeah.
So Harvey Hedden and I had a chance to go over to the Polizeitrainers in Deutschland conference. They run it during the European Police Trainer Convention. And it is about 200 European police officers. So Bulgaria was there, Romania, Austria had a huge representation. There was a lot of UK, but all over Europe, primarily Germany, and run by an organization called PID. And after a conversation between ILEETA leadership and PID leadership, we're really looking at doing some sort of a long-term exchange between these two. I mean, PID's been around since '97. These organizations to really kind of foster that international piece, like you were talking about, Cody, about having Ukrainians there.
Mhm.
There's a great conference that happens overseas. Our members should be, if they're able to get to Europe in May, go to this conference.
Yeah.
It's going to be in. I think it's going to be in Leipzig again next year. Either way, but get there and go to the conference. Their members should be coming to us as well, and they don't do like we do with the trainers buffet or curated week. Theirs is plenary speakers, and it's folks from the stage. Kind of here's what research is telling us and that sort of thing. The presenters get 30 minutes each. And actually, I got the chance to talk about resilience there this year, which was, I mean, they've done something on suicide every year. The European police are dealing with the same stuff we are. Big movement in UK to really kind of work some stuff out, and same with Germany. So a lot of really good stuff happening. And, honestly, it was a good opportunity to, kind of see how others are doing it. I can speak for Harvey when I say we both had an incredible time and got to see a different perspective. It was nice.
That's awesome. I love that.
Thanks for sharing that, Joe. I didn't want to close this out without you asking you if you wanted to share that. I'm going to do something a little bit different. We usually end this out with a round robin. Before we do that, Cody, is there any questions you want to ask of Joe, Dwayne, or I, or anything about the ILEETA organization at all?
Yeah, I'm going to throw back Dwayne's question. What has been your guys' biggest takeaways being parts, whether it's your position or what you've learned, but what have been your guys' biggest takeaways from ILEETA through your time in this organization?
Wow.
Yeah. Ha, 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 ha.
Well, since Dwayne asked the question, we'll let Dwayne lead off with that.
That's not fair because I got like 20 years I have to go through. I will answer the question that I asked you.
Okay.
Of all the classes that I took this year, and there wasn't a bad one among them, is I thought that Nicole Florisi's class on walking away with, she gave us a bunch of actionable items we could use for mindfulness, was
Awesome.
probably one of the best classes I went to, because it wasn't something abstract. It's things you could do right now, today, to implement mindfulness and wellness. And I thought you put on a fantastic class, and that was probably the biggest takeaway out of all the classes that I went to.
Was that the mindful marksmanship?
No, that was
I don't remember what the name of this was.
Mel Aguirre. She
Yes.
taught that one. Yeah.
Both really good classes. Yes.
So I
I'll go
dodged the
next,
question.
and I'll tell you. Oh, go ahead, Dwayne. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I'm good. That's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
I like it. For me, so for the conference, I'll answer the question you asked, not the one Dwayne answered that he asked you. For me, and your answer resonated with me. So from my first conference, I've seen my own confidence and willingness to take risks increase exponentially from one year to the next. I'm willing more. Like Dwayne hit the nail on the head. We've already had this conversation in the past with another, she's been around ILEETA for a long time, Kim Schlau. She presented this year on imposter syndrome. Her and several other members kind of brainstormed how this class could be, because we all kind of suffer with, am I really the one who should be up here talking? You mentioned I'm 32, and I'm a little older than 32, and I still sometimes wonder,
Right.
am I the right person for this?
For sure.
But I've watched each year, and largely thanks to ILEETA and the network, or the relationships that we build that lift us up, but also tell us it's okay to take risks. And thank you for pointing that out. I've had the same experience.
That's awesome. And I went to Kim's class. It was great.
She had a great class. I'm still thinking.
We gave you plenty of time. Jump in, man.
I mean, there's just so many wonderful experiences and takeaways that I've had over the years. But what I keep coming back to is the relationships.
Mm-hmm.
There's been people I've had a lot of challenges in the past, but there's been people that see a post and see something that maybe not right that I put on Facebook and they'll pick up the phone and they'll call me. My dad passed away a few years ago, and I had no idea that there was going to be an ILEETA member there. Ron Scheit drove hours and hours to be there, tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around and there's Ron Scheit. So the relationships is powerful. I mean, the training is beyond awesome. It is, the training is great. And what I learned with the training is the first few years I was going, I found the people that I liked, and I kept going back year after year. And then somebody said, try to go to somebody that you don't know anything about and a topic that really doesn't interest you, and start learning about that topic. And so I started doing that, and which continued to build new relationships. So I just got to say the relationships and the family oriented atmosphere of the ILEETA organization is what keeps me coming back. So that's my answer.
Yeah, I think that's the best answer we could have, honestly, because again, it continues with us for as long as we have these relationships. And we often might find ourselves in organizations or in hobby clubs, whatever it might be, where they talk about that family oriented trainings or family oriented relationships, and then it doesn't really tick that box for you. I've had that at times where they told me it's family first here, and sometimes it's just not enough of the family first for me. Whereas at ILEETA, it really is. There are complete strangers I met at this conference that I consider friends now, that I talk to regularly, that keep in touch. And I mean, for you to have made a bond where they would drive hours to come for you in a time of need, it doesn't get any better than that. That's awesome. That's a good battle buddy right there.
I like that term. Well, we're right at the top of the hour, and I do want to do the round robin. Joe, any final comments, questions for Cody?
No, I've asked so many. I just want to say, thank you for being here. Thank you for everything you've shared. And on behalf of veterans, thank you for being the token veteran tonight who got to speak for everybody in law enforcement. Thank you so much for your service.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you for yours too.
Dwayne?
Again, Cody, thanks for bringing your energy, your enthusiasm as a first-year attendee. You're exactly what we're looking for in the organization, to bring that energy and that passion. And the confidence, like I said, we all suffer from feelings of lack of confidence. The key thing is getting over it and being willing to take those risks, and belonging to an organization, like we've already talked about, creating those relationships, getting those mentors to push you to be more than you thought you could be, is what ILEETA is all about.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dwayne. I really don't have any final questions. Just some thoughts that everybody else has already said it, but thank you for being our guest tonight. Thank you for your service in the military. And everybody out there that's watching that has served in the military, this is your month. Thank you all for your service, whatever branch it was: Marines, Army, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard. Did I miss any?
Space. It's happening now. We've been in Space Force long enough to be veterans.
Thank you all for that. Just one more thing. Our ILEETA Journal will be coming out shortly. The next deadline for the next ILEETA Journal is September 10th. So all those folks that would like to be a published author in an international publication, this is your chance, and we're here to help you. So Cody, if you would like to write, just let me know and we'll get you published. Awesome. Anybody else out there watching? We're always looking for new people to write, and I know it can be a challenge, but it boost your confidence, and it helps pad your resume a little bit. And it's a great way to get some information out there to the organization. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for inviting.
Just hang on. I'm going to end the stream, but
Absolutely.
hang on 1 second here, and we'll end the stream. But you all have a wonderful night. We really enjoyed the night, and Cody, your enthusiasm was fantastic. So thank you.
Thanks,
Joe,
guys. Appreciate it.
Dwayne, and Todd. I know you're watching.